Good evening, everyone. It's Tanja here from Tanja Kraus Horsemanship, and I'm coming to you for our Monday Night Live show. And I'm looking forward to tonight's show. It's a topic that comes up pretty frequently at clinics and all the time when I'm talking to people and things like that. So I'm really looking forward to sharing with you my ideas and my suggestions and things like that. I do apologize once again for my voice. I have just returned from Warhope after a 3-day clinic, and it's running out pretty quickly. So I'm looking forward to tomorrow, where I'm in the office, and so I should be able to talk a little less and I won't have to talk so loud. So fingers crossed I can get through this Monday Night Live with my voice, but there is also a storm going on outside, so hopefully the Wi-Fi is going to hold out. If it doesn't, the replay will go up and I might have to refilm it or something like that. Hey Gwenda, hey Leah, thanks for joining. I absolutely would recommend that if you guys are in stormy areas and you're plugged in, that you're not actually watching this live. As much as I love to have you, I would hate for you to message me and say, my computer blew up because I was watching Monday Night Live in a storm. So I hope you've got surge protectors and all that kind of stuff on. So tonight's topic is building the canter. And as I said, it's something that comes up pretty frequently in regards to our horses and our horsemanship. Hey Hillary, Hillary's joining from the Hunter Valley. Oh, you have your therapy, your massage course on this weekend. So I'm really excited to hear about that. I'm looking forward to seeing Hillary and hearing what she learnt at her refresher course for equine massage. I hope I'm getting it right. Anywho, building the canter is a pretty hot topic most of the time, and I'm going to share with you just a few ideas and philosophies about how I would prepare for building the canter, or how I prepare my horses for the canter. Sometimes we're talking about different horses in regards to young horses that we're trying to teach to canter, or maybe experienced horses and we're talking about the person being inexperienced in the canter. Maybe we're talking about a combination of both, as in a inexperienced rider or a rider that hasn't cantered for a long time on a green horse that hasn't had much experience cantering with a rider, or hasn't had a lot of miles in the canter. Or maybe we're bringing a horse back into work that hasn't had a lot of cantering, and we're going to talk about what we can do to prepare for the canter in the lead up to try and make it as successful as possible. Quite often the canter is something where things can go wrong, unfortunately. It can be a pretty sweeping gait. Sometimes the riders get unbalanced. Sometimes the horses get unbalanced and can trip over and things like that. And sometimes the horses can get a little worried in the canter, especially in that first transition, along with the riders. So quite often a rider might be asking a horse to go into a canter, and they're sort of asking them to go into the canter, but they're holding them back at the same time. The horse gets a little confused, the horse gets a little worried by that kind of action, and then the horse can start to maybe kick up or do things that are a little bit undesirable, and then it starts to snowball. The horse kicks up the first couple of times, then the rider starts anticipating that the horse is going to kick up, and then the rider starts to even more try and hold the horse in but tell it to go, and then the horse gets more confused because we're telling it to go and we're telling it to slow at the same time. So I'm going to share with you probably just 5 or 6 things tonight in regards to building the canter. I do have an information sheet on this one. It's ready to go. I know we're still playing catch up on the previous information sheets, and I am still working on getting them out to you, but this one is actually here. It's my notes, so it's already been typed up. It's already done. If you would like it, please send me a private message with your email address in it. I know for a lot of you, we already have your email addresses, but it does make it heaps easier if you just put the email address in the message, because that way we can just copy and put it straight into when we're sending it out, as opposed to us trying to find it, because obviously we have it stored in different areas and things like that. So if you would like an information sheet on building the canter, it's fairly comprehensive. So please let us know at the end if you would like it. Don't put it in the comments, because I won't necessarily see it in the comments. So the first thing that I'm going to do when it comes to building the canter is I'm going to establish the canter cue. So I personally use a smooch or a kiss when I ask my horses to canter. I don't use it for anything else. I don't use it to get them to go faster. I don't use it for any other transition. I don't use it for any other reason in the paddock when I'm on the ground. The only thing I use that smooch for is when I'm asking the horse to transition up to the canter. So he very, very much understands what it is that I'm looking for when I make that noise. So, hey Abby, hey Fee, Rachel saying pleased to see that you made it home. I did. I had a pretty good run, which was really cool. I had to take cover about 20 minutes ago on the way home. There was a pretty big storm rolling through. So I had to take cover at someone's house, but I was only there for about 15 minutes and then I made the rest of the trip home. So I am here and hopefully my Wi-Fi is going to hold out in the weather. We do have it going on outside at the moment. So building the canter cue, I want to establish the canter cue when I'm online. I also want to establish the canter cue. Hey Michelle from New Zealand. I also want to build the canter cue when I'm at liberty in the round yard, and I do prefer to build it on in both ways, at liberty and online, because ropes and things like that can get in the way and they can add a little bit of feel that we might not necessarily want. So I definitely like to establish that nice cue for the canter, both online and at liberty. Once I've got the horse understanding that smooch as being the canter cue, I can take it up onto the saddle and it makes it a lot easier for the horse to understand what it is that I'm asking for. But it's really important to make sure that as I build that cue on the ground, that what I'm also doing is making it very clear to the horse that it's not that I want him to go faster. Canter isn't necessarily a faster gait than trot. My horse should be able to walk, trot and canter at the same speed. It's not each one is faster than the one before. And this is where we run into a lot of issues with our horses. We tend to ask them to canter. They trot a lot faster. And then we ask them to canter and we keep putting pressure on them. And so they're just running and running and running. And then they end up falling into the canter. And this is where some of the problems can come out. Because with that running away, the horse can get worried and bothered and things like that, and that's where the back legs can come up, or a little pig root or something like that. Or I can really have them on the forehand, which is really dangerous because obviously they can trip over and things like that. So I want to make sure that as I build the canter, it's coming from a really nice balanced trot. So when I'm first teaching a horse to canter online, I'm going to establish a nice balanced steady trot. I'm going to ask for the canter, smooch. If the horse speeds up, I'm going to allow them to speed up, but I'm then going to rebalance them and then ask them to canter again. So I'm asking them to, I'm allowing them to speed up in the sense that I'm not going to punish them for speeding up, but I'm not going to complete the transition up to the canter while they're in that faster gait. So what this does in the horse's mind is it clarifies that the horse has done something correct by changing what he's doing, because I don't want to teach him to ignore me. So I'm teaching the horse that when I smooch, yes, you have to change something. And then by bringing him back down to a more balanced trot, I give him the indication that he may have been heading in the right direction, but he didn't quite get it. So I rebalance him and I ask him again. I rebalance him and I ask him again. And I keep doing this until the horse takes that canter stride. Then as soon as the horse takes that canter stride, I give a vocal yes or I disengage him straight away and I allow him to rest. So the horse has a really big neon sign that says, yes, that was what you were supposed to do. That is why you've earned a rest from doing that transition. I find that often we allow the horses, or we ask the horses to get into the canter, and then we hunt them, and the horses start to push back on us, pushing them all the time, trying to get them to stay in the canter, and then the horse has a negative experience or a negative connotation in regards to the canter. So then I'm causing all sorts of other issues for myself. So the first thing I want to do is establish that a smooch or a canter cue, whatever you want to use, means canter. I want to establish that that transition is to come from a balanced trot, and I want to establish to the horse's mind that it's a positive experience by rewarding and resting when he does a canter transition. And then I'm going to build it fairly quickly, so not necessarily in the same session, but fairly soon after I'm resting him after he's done that transition. I'm going to then ask him for 2 strides and 3 strides and 4 strides, so he understands that there is a requirement to keep going, but it's not an immediate requirement. So I'm building him into holding that gait in the circle. And then I'll build him up to a quarter of a circle and a half a circle and whatever I want to get him to. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later on in the piece. So this exercise, building the canter cue online and at liberty and establishing that it comes from a balance and then building the horse's ability to hold it, is the whole objective of it is to build understanding in the horse of the cue, of what we desire, and also to build in the horse a positive experience surrounding that canter transition. So he doesn't feel that he has to associate fatigue or worry or running or tripping over or being out of balance with the canter. So if we can establish a positive experience with it, the horse is going to be a lot more willing to canter when we ask him to. So hey Jody, thanks for joining. I'm glad that this topic is something that you are interested in or that you need. Hey Brett, it's good to have you. I hope that you're safe in all the storms that we're having. I'm not plugged in. I'm on Wi-Fi, so I'm hoping that everything's going to last. The second thing that I'm going to establish, or the next thing that I'm going to do is build the horse's energy or energy management in regards to the canter and his physical ability to hold that gait for a full circle or 2 full circles, or whatever it is, in order to allow him to get comfortable and confident in that gait and just bowling along in the canter. So the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to increase the requirements intermittently for the horse, where I'm initially rewarding a transition, and then I'm going to reward him holding 2 or 3 strides, and then I'm going to build it to half a circle, and then I'm going to build it to a full circle. As I'm building that, what I'm also building is the horse's ability to receive messages from me during the cantering process. Because as a horse goes up through the gates, his adrenaline goes up and his ability to receive and process messages gets lower and lower. So when that happens, I need to train my horse to be able to receive cues or messages from me during that gait. So when I'm on his back and I ask him to move over, or I ask him to slow down, or I ask him to elevate, or I ask him to engage, he understands. He doesn't panic when he gets a cue. He understands, oh no, it's cool, I'm cantering along, I can receive that, I can process it, and then I can execute something that the rider is telling me to do. So I established that kind of thing online first. Jody's saying, what about a horse that can change lead easily with body position? Transition to take the correct lead. Many thanks. As I think Jody's asking, and if you can clarify this for me, Jody, are you asking how to build a horse that can change lead easily with body position? As in building a transition to take the correct lead? If so, if you can re-comment, and then I'll try and address that at the end. If I don't get time to do it, it is actually in the information sheet. There's a lot of information. It's like 3 pages long. So you can definitely email or send me your email address, and it's a fairly comprehensive information sheet in regards to that. So I'm establishing the canter cue. I'm establishing the horse's positivity surrounding the canter. I'm establishing the horse's balance in the canter. I'm establishing the horse's ability to receive messages and execute maneuvers during the canter, while I'm on the ground or while I'm online, so he doesn't have the interference of the person, the rider's body, not only the weight of the rider and the weight of the saddle and the interference with everything going on, but the imbalance of the rider as well. If the rider is not, isn't canter fit. If you're not canter fit, then there's every chance that you're kind of going to move a fair bit, especially if you've got a horse that hasn't been cantering for a long time, whether it's a young horse or a horse that's coming back in for a spell. If you haven't done it in your body for a long time, then the issue is going to be there that you're going to be a little bit unbalanced as well. And we're going to talk about that shortly. One thing I do have to note here is that we have to make sure that we are establishing this in a fairly good size round yard, or on a good size lead rope, at least a 22-foot line, because the smaller the circle, the more challenging and the more difficult it is for the horse. So while you might establish your transitions on a shorter line so you're able to ask the horse to do the transition, you're able to support him through the transition, you might want to do that on a smaller circle. Once you want to build the horse's confidence in the canter, you have to understand that the smaller the circle, the more fatiguing it is, the more difficult it is, and the more likely the horse is going to lose balance and be unable to either continue the canter, so he's going to drop out of the canter all the time, or he's going to start cross-firing, he's not going to be elevated in front, he's going to start rushing on a smaller circle. So once you've got those transitions, established in the horse, and you're trying to build the horse's ability to hold that canter, you need to get him out on a bigger circle and use a bigger space so he's able to actually use his body more effectively. The smaller the circle, the more advanced the horse, basically. The second thing that we need to do is, I've sort of just touched on that, build the gate without the rider. So we built the cue, and then we built the gate without the rider. So, you know, we're establishing the horse's ability to hold at least 1 or 2 circles before we would interfere with a rider. The next thing we have to do is build the rider's confidence around the canter. If you're on a horse that you are unfamiliar with its canter, it's unfamiliar with the canter, you're not canter fit, etc., etc., a poor combination is going to be a rider that's not canter fit and a horse that's not canter/rider fit going together and trying to establish a quality canter. Because even if you think that you're going to be able to execute it quite well, your instinct is going to kick in, and you're probably going to have some kind of tension in your body. You're going to tighten or brace or grip or do something that is going to send a message to the horse, or that's going to worry the horse in the transition. So this is what I see a lot of young horses or horses just coming back into work, or green riders really starting to get in the way of the horse, where they're sort of giving the cue. They're saying, yes, I want you to canter. So their body, their cue's saying yes, but their body's saying no. So they're saying yes, but not too fast. Yes, but not too much. Yes, but I really don't think I want you to canter. So then the horse starts getting frustrated, because he's saying, well, your legs are telling me to go, you're clicking me up, you're giving me the cue to canter, but then you're letting me run into your hands, or you're blocking me in some way. So this is where we can start to get horses that pig root and things like that. So to build the rider confidence, I would suggest that we either, if you think the horse is ready for it, as in if it's an older horse just coming back into work, go ahead and put that horse on the lunge and put the rider on the horse, and let the rider get the feel for the canter. Ideally though, I would put the rider on a schoolmaster, and you could even lunge the schoolmaster, so not the green horse. Put the rider on a schoolmaster, get the rider canter fit, and then the rider is a lot more confident going into asking for that canter on that horse. The second thing, the second half of that equation is getting the horse canter fit with a rider. If the rider that owns the horse, or the rider that's riding the horse, is over here on the schoolmaster building their skills, then I would be getting a professional to ride the horse and get the horse canter fit with a rider on him. A rider that is a professional, that is not going to get in the horse's way, that is going to let the horse go into the canter and just canter along and enjoy a forward nice canter. Then once each party has established their canter fitness separately, then you can start to put those two together and build the canter as a team. So some of the exercises that we can do in regards to building the canter, and I do highly recommend, if you are not canter fit, having someone lunge you on a horse that is used to being lunged, or that is a schoolmaster, because then the horse is not going to get bothered. Not going to get bothered by your interfering or your shifting your weight or something like that. What I want is the horse to be able to lope along, canter along, and you can start to, when you get confident enough, what I really want for the rider to be able to do is canter along, no hands, and use their body to go with the movement of the horse. Now, if that idea worries you, if you think there's no way I could canter with no hands, what that tells me is that you're relying on the horse, you're relying on the reins for balance, and that's not a very good experience for the horse. So we all should be able to canter with no hands. We should be able to canter with no stirrups as well. I don't want everyone to go out tomorrow and try and canter with no stirrups and canter with no reins and then send me messages and say, oh, I fell off when I did what you told me to do. That's not what I'm telling you to do at all. But what I'm doing is I'm giving you a baseline of which to assess yourself in. If the idea of letting go of the reins and cantering along bothers you, it tells me that you're using your hands for balance. If the thought of sitting on a horse and loping along with no stirrups worries you, it tells me that you're using your feet or your stirrups to sort of stand up, which is putting you in a compromising position as well. If you're pushing down into your stirrups in the canter, it means you're pushing yourself up out of the saddle, which means that you're probably slapping into the saddle in the canter, and it's very uncomfortable, and you're bouncing everywhere. And because you're bouncing, you're grabbing on the horse's face, and because you're grabbing on the horse's face, the horse is starting to shake his head and pull down on your hands to try and protect his face, and it's not a very positive experience for anyone. So I highly recommend establishing your canter fitness on a horse that isn't going to be bothered by those things, and letting a professional build the canter fitness of the horse that needs to build confidence surrounding a rider. As we go into helping the horse to build balance and collection and engagement with the rider, one of the things that I like to talk about when it comes to the canter is, firstly, not worrying too much about trying to build the leads straight away. If you've got a young horse or a horse that's not canter fit, the last thing you need to be doing is being out there and trying to build the lead from day one. What you need to do is build the horse's confidence in the canter, and then you can start to build the correct lead depending on how you do it. Some people are going to use that quarters in, some people are going to use the shoulder in. Whichever method you use, you're going to put that in once the horse is confident in the canter. Because again, if you start to put in all these expectations and all these requirements of the canter, you're building it up into something that is worrisome for the horse and probably worrisome for you, unless you're a canter fit person. So if you're a canter fit person and the idea of getting the correct leads isn't worrisome to you, then that's fine, but we need to preserve the horse. We need to think about, if I'm on the horse and I'm saying, I want a correct flexion and I want your quarters in and I need your ribs to the outside, and then I want you to be a nice balanced trot, and then I'm going to ask you to canter, and I'm going to ask you to stay soft in my hand, and I'm going to ask you to come through from behind, then you're piling all these expectations on the horse while he still should have his training wheels on. Well, you should be able to just give the horse a fairly loose rein, lift up your own energy, give him the canter cue, that nice little smooch, get a nice balanced transition, come back to a trot and a walk and rest him and give him a rub and say, thank you very much, that was a great transition, we're going to build it from there. As you add the building blocks on and raise the bar in regards to the quality of the canter, this is when you can start to talk about building arcs or curves and building the correct lead. So when we're talking about building arcs or curves, one of the things that humans like to do when it comes to the canter is circles. And circles are poisonous for horses in any gait, really. I like to avoid circles as much as I possibly can, because circles can often cause a horse to start bulging out through the outside shoulder. The horse is going to start motorbiking. The horse is going to start losing balance and all of these sorts of things. So as we start to establish a canter in a nice straight line, which doesn't have to be perfectly straight from the start, again, we're going to allow the horse to build confidence in the gait, and then we're slowly going to add these requirements. As we start to want to build the curves, what we're going to do is ask the horse to canter in a fairly large space. So if I'm working in an arena, I'll go ahead and as I'm coming out of one of the corners, I might ask the horse to pick up the lead. So when I'm talking about on an arena, let me just see if I can get this to work. I've never done this before on a live, so I don't know whether you guys can see that arena that I've built there. So if we're talking about coming up this side of the arena and asking for the canter, I'm not going to ask for the canter in the first corner, because that means the horse is going to have to canter and then go all the way around the short side, which is a small circle, which we just spoke about how difficult that is for the horse. He's going to have to do 2 quite tight turns in this space. So what I'm going to do when I'm first building is, if I can be out in a big open paddock and I feel confident to be out in a big open paddock, then that's what I'm going to do. If I've only got an arena to work in, I'm going to ask for the lope on the second corner, because what that does is the corner helps the horse take the curve or the arc, but then he gets released straight away by going up the long side. So when I go up the long side, I'm then going to ask him to come back to a trot before he gets to the other short side and has to really work himself and hold a really nice frame to come around that. That's quite difficult for a young unbalanced horse to canter, especially in these smaller arenas that we have here. In Australia, in terms of a dressage arena, they're only 20 metres wide, and we tend to think that 20 metres is a really big circle for a horse, but it's actually not. So that is, and depending on the size of our horse and how big the horse is, the bigger the horse, the harder this curve is going to be. So the first thing I'm going to do to start to build my arc is I'm going to ask for the canter before the corner, and then I'm just going to do that little arc. Then he gets a release, and then I ask him to trot beforehand. But when I'm building the canter, I'm going to go ahead and build the canter here somewhere, and I'm going to ask him to trot right before the corner. So no curves when he's first building his confidence in the canter. The curves come after that, okay? Now, as I start to build those curves and build the horse's ability, that's when I'm going to start asking for the canter where he does one corner, and then I'm going to ask for the canter where he does the 2 corners, and then a straight line, and maybe these 2 corners and a straight line, and then I'm going to start making my arena shorter. So I don't need to move the outside of my arena, but what I'm going to start to do is pick up the canter here before the corner, ask for the canter, he's done 1 corner, we've done a half a circle, we go straight. Then as he starts to build his confidence and gets nice and balanced in that, and your horse will tell you when he's ready for a steeper, stronger arc. So if you're doing a canter transition here, you're doing 1 little corner and going straight, and he's still losing it in this corner, and I don't mean by kicking out or anything like that, but if he's still really unbalanced and motorbiking, you're not going to add the second corner. What's the point of that? If he can't do 1, there's no way he's going to be able to do 2, right? So build his confidence in this corner, get this corner nice and balanced, support him through this corner, and then when he starts to say to you, yeah, I can do corners, then you'll do this first corner, release him, give him a break down the straight, and then do this second corner and ask him to trot before the third corner. So you're going little corner, straight, little corner. Then you'll build it to canter down here, or just coming out of the curve, down the straight, little corner, little straight, little corner, good, back to the trot down here, yeah? Then you'll add in this top corner again. So canter here, little corner, straight, little corner, straight, little corner, trot here somewhere. Then you'll start building it to the whole arena. Then you'll start building it where you maybe cut the arena in half. So he's doing a 20 metre straight corner, 30 metre straight corner, 20 metre straight corner, 30 metre straight. Then you're going to bring it down to your 20 metre circle, and so on and so forth. As you can see, the degree of difficulty is increasing as we start to bring those corners together and the cantering becomes a circle. So this is how we're going to not only build our horses and preserve our horse's confidence in this gait. What we're doing is we're building his athletic ability, we're building his understanding of what he needs to do with his body in the corner, and then as we make the corners get closer and closer together, the horse understands what he needs to do with his body all the way around the whole 20-meter circle. So we begin to avoid all of those issues that we create, the horse going through the outside shoulder, the horse motorbiking, the horse dropping the inside shoulder. None of that shoulder stuff, most of the time, has anything to do with the horse's inability or the horse's lack of understanding in the corner. What it has to do with is the horse's inability to hold his body in such a in his bilateral fitness. Okay, we're talking about bilateral fitness here. It's the horse's inability to hold himself in that position, keep that strong inside leg going. So then he starts to pop out through the outside shoulder to get a release. Then he starts to drop the inside shoulder to get a release. Then he starts to do all these things because he can't hold his body. I always ask it in this way, how long can you plank for? Okay? If you all put your phones on the floor right now and get down and start planking, you're going to start sending me messages. Some of you are going to start sending me messages within about 15 seconds and go, I could only plank for 15 seconds. And yet we'll get on a horse and expect him to carry himself and essentially plank because the canter requires him to engage his abs and come through from behind. And we want him to plank, and we'll sit on that poor bugger and say, don't come from the outside shoulder and don't drop the inside and do this and do that, and we'll get after him, and yet we've done nothing to build his physical ability in that way. So we have to build his physical ability to hold that balance or that plank, and we must always have lots and lots of rest periods in between so the horse can relax those muscles and rest those muscles. Gwenda's saying no, that's because Gwenda can plank for, hours and hours and hours, but you're special, Gwenda, so that doesn't count. Most of us can't do that. Building the correct leads in the horse, it comes once the horse starts becoming confident with the curves. And of course, those curves and those corners are going to help with our horse naturally picking up the correct lead, because as he starts to understand the corner of the arena, he starts to make that connection where I'm going to go around I'm going to go around the corner to the left, so I need to be on the left lead. And if we maintain his confidence in this whole process, he will naturally pick up those correct leads. And then what we can do as we're coming up, as we make the approach to that corner, we can start to put that outside leg on, cock those hips in, or ask for the shoulder in, whatever way you're going to set your horse up for the canter. You can start to put that in right before it, and then as he takes the correct lead and we reward him, then he starts to make the association, oh, she does this, and then I pick up the left lead, and then she's happy and we're all getting rewarded, and then she does this and we pick up the right lead and we're all happy and getting rewarded. And so it makes your life a lot easier when it then comes to asking for that horse to do the transitions on the straight line. Remaining balanced is something that we need to build as well. So circles typically don't help our horses maintain balance. What we want to do, I ride a lot of squares on my horses. So even once I've built my horse's confidence and endurance and all that sort of stuff, and I've gone through that whole exercise where I've built my squares and I've made my squares into circles, then I actually come out and I bring them back out to squares again, because my squares allow me to ask for my quarters in and my more collected work around the corners, and then I can start to talk to my horse about collection and engagement and riding his hindquarter around the corner. So I can do all my strengthening on those beautiful corners that are part of my squares, and I can start to introduce my counter bend. I can start to introduce to my horse the concept of me rolling his rib cage around, shoulders in, quarters in, all those kind of things while we're in the canter. And then my horse learns not to simply get stuck in a gait and keep going and as I used the term earlier in the piece, bowl along. When my horse is building confidence, when he's learning how to canter with the rider, I want him to learn to bowl along. But very soon, I want to be able to say to my horse, we're going to the left, flex to the left. We're going to the left, flex to the right. We're going to the left, quarters in left. We're going to the left, shoulder in. We're going to the right, shoulder in. So my horse starts to understand that even in the canter, I see a lot of horses that get set in the canter. They don't have maneuverability. They don't have adjustability or flexibility. They're not supple in the canter because we've allowed them to perhaps take a shape or a curve, but then they get set in that shape for that lead. And what I want to be able to do is still talk to my horse's body and say, you can still move your quarters, you can still move your shoulder, you can still do all of these things while we're in the canter. And this is the kind of thing that is going to encourage my horse to remain balanced or cause my horse to remain balanced. What's the last thing I want to talk about? I think that's it, actually. I've spoken a little bit about building from a rectangle to a square to ovals to circles. It's, as I said, I do have this information sheet on the canter. If you would like me to email it to you, go ahead and send us your email address. Even if I've sent you stuff before, please send your email address in a private message. It makes it so much easier because we can just click on the email address, copy it, drag it straight into an email that we've attached the info sheet to. We won't have to run through your files or through the online file to find your email address. So even if we know you and we email stuff all the time, it makes it a lot easier for us if you just send that email address through. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope that you got some great information out of this topic. Please send me any topics that you'd like to see me cover on a Monday Night Live. A big hello to the few people that were at Warhope Clinic. Accuracy, feel and timing we just finished for the last 3 days. It was an amazing course, and I've seen a couple of them log in. So hi to you guys. I hope you all made it home nice and safely. Exciting news this week. We've got Joni. We've given Joni the final approval. So Joni is our kids book. It should be here in hard copy in about 2 weeks. I'm so excited about that. Go to the page, Joni, Not Just a Pony, and follow the links to our website where you can order directly. We do have specials on the website for pre-ordering at the moment, so go ahead and do that because that pre-ordering pricing will disappear as soon as I have the hard copies in my hands, because I do want to support and say thank you to everyone that pre-orders by giving them a special price. So the pricing will go up as soon as I've got the hard copies in my hands. It's a great Christmas present for any kids, or you can buy them for schools, or you can donate them to pony clubs, or whatever it is that you want to do. It's got a really cool message. It's got a really cool message for young kids in it. So again, thank you for joining me on our Monday Night Live. Our first Monday Night Live DVD is available if you would like a copy of that. It's got the first 5 Monday Night Live Series 1 on it. And they're only $15 including postage. So if you would like them, go ahead and send me a private message and we can organize that for you. And thanks for joining me on this Monday night. I hope everyone has a great week with their horses. Please send me any topics you want to see me cover, and I will see everyone at my next course, Glenray Balance and Transitions, which is in a couple of weeks. So I hope you're all having a great time with your ponies. Thanks for joining me. Please stay safe in all the stormy weather that we're having here on the east coast of Australia. Good night.